Good evening, Team SCCA. I'm Mike Cobb, President and CEO of the Sports Car Club of America, and I want to welcome each of you to our 2025 Hall of Fame Award Show. We're excited to be with you tonight and honored to bring you this celebration featuring your Sports Car Club of America 2025 Hall of Fame inductees, along with the Member of Excellence and the Woolf Barnato Award winners. Tonight, we'll recognize and celebrate 9 of our finest. Members who've made incredible contributions to this club and to the broader world of motorsports through their passion for the sport. So round up your friends and family, get your motor running, and let's get this car on course. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the SCCA 2025 Hall of Fame Award Show. Let's roll!
It would have been almost impossible to attend an SCCA event in the Midwest and beyond in any discipline and never have met Raleigh and Velma Breen. The dynamic duo began their SCCA careers in the timing and scoring building of Central Division road races. The people they met there, including fellow Hall of Famer Roger Johnson, ignited a passion that hasn't burned out. The Breens became heavily involved in the Central and Great Lakes Division solo series, upon which the current national tour was modeled. Those team-building skills allowed them to serve as official solo nationals event chiefs for several years and remain actively involved in the event setup and teardown, always among the first to arrive and very last to leave. Raleigh is perhaps most well known for his banquet hosting duties. He has served as the MC at numerous solo nationals, national conventions, Hall of Fame ceremonies, and regional and divisional functions across the country, and his voice is carried through autocross sites as an event announcer. Velma was just as integral to most of those same events. A tireless worker behind the scenes, Velma was always willing to lend a hand or take on a larger project. She has been vital to the growth of the Women on Track program, which has built a community across the club and provided invaluable scholarship opportunities. Together, they served as SCCA ambassadors to the Formula SAE program and were a critical part of the regional development project that provided materials, mentorships, and administrative structure to assist regions in their activities. Work with the SCCA Foundation and the SCCA Hall of Fame are just 2 more of the projects of which the Breens have been a part. And just for fun, they have been spotted in timing and scoring and on the grid at time trials events, on the grid for road racing, and behind the wheel at autocross races. A true SCCA power couple, please welcome Raleigh and Velma Breen to the SCCA Hall of Fame.
Good evening. Wow, that is the only word that we could come up with when Mike Cobb, the president of SCCA, called Velma and me and said, "You are being inducted into the SCCA Hall of Fame." Just could not believe it. We put together some notes, so the idea that hopefully we don't forget anything tonight. But for many years, we were going to the SCCA conventions when they were live. And in several instances, I was the MC for those conventions, and we would get invited to the reception prior to the dinner. So we'd get to meet all of the people going into the Hall of Fame and their families. And we looked at each other and said, that's never going to happen to us. We will never do that. But it was just always so neat to get a chance to, and those families were always so excited for those evenings. Our journey with SCCA started pretty simply. It was the winter of 1969, and I was going to a dental appointment in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Well, my dentist, Joe Ganella, was a Formula V racer, but he only raced regional races. When it came to national races or the pro races, he would work timing and scoring. So he said, "Hey, Raleigh, how would you like to go to some races for free?" Well, I was a college kid at the time, and free is good. So I said, absolutely. Well, in the spring of 1970, Velma, my fiance at the time, my sister Terry, and I went to a driver's school at Donnybrook International up in northern Minnesota, and we really enjoyed working timing and scoring. The first big race we got to go to that year was the Trans Am, and I love muscle cars, so it was right up our alley. Well, after working that Trans Am at Donnybrook, we were absolutely hooked.
In 1971, we also decided to venture out and try working a race at Road America. And from 71 to 81, we worked more than 100 races at a variety of tracks. We worked Donnybrook, Road America, Blackhawk Farms, Waterford Hills, Mid-Ohio, Nelson Ledges, Watkins Glen. We even worked the Formula One race in Montreal. And since then, we have added Virginia International and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway working the runoffs. One moment that will always stand out to us with SCCA is in 1976, Jim Poole, who was a member of Chicago region, worked timing and scoring with us. At the end of the weekend, he came up to Raleigh, put his arm around him and said, "Okay, you're through school, you've got a job, you're gainfully employed, it is time to join SCCA." And we said, sure, why would we not join? Nobody just had ever asked us before. So we did what we needed to do. We located a paper membership form, which is how you had to do it back then. We wrote out a check, put it in the mail, and sent it off to SCCA. However, back then, to become an SCCA member, you also had to have 2 current SCCA members sponsor you. Well, we had 2 really good friends in Milwaukee region that were our sponsors, Greg Schick and Doug Reed, and we just hope that we've done them proud.
Absolutely. After college, Velma and I moved 5 times for my job all over the Midwest. Probably the biggest move, though, for us with SCCA, though, was when we moved to Ohio. That is where we were introduced to solo. Roger Johnson and Phil Schmidt, 2 good friends, and they've maintained good friendships over the last 40 years, introduced us to solo. And in 1981, we went to 4 solo events. In 1982, we went to 5 events. And we even got talked into going to the Solo National Championship, which was at Marriott's Great America in the Chicago area. Well, after that, we had so much fun at that event that late in 1982, we bought one of the brand new Volkswagen GTIs, an 83 GTI, and in 1983, we went to 15 solo events. Now, from 1982 to 2024, Velma and I have participated in 31 national championships. There were some years we just couldn't go. It's called work. It got in the way. And so we weren't able to go, but we've always enjoyed being participants and being involved in one of the largest automotive events in the country, and you just can't beat it. We've been fortunate. We have gotten to go all over the United States and Canada. We know SCCA members all over the United States. We've been to all 50 states. In fact, we've soloed actually in 21 different states over the years. Well, when I was working, we're retired now, but when I was working, I flew a lot. I lived in airports for years. And it seemed like every trip that I took, invariably, I would run into somebody from SCCA on one of the times in an airport. The SCCA community is just huge, and it has done so much for us. We really, really appreciate it.
One of the greatest things about belonging to SCCA is this is something that the 2 of us can do together. There are a lot of things that stand out by belonging to SCCA, but we've always been very proud of the fact that we've been able to give back to the club and back to the regions. We have worked many tire rack street survival schools. We have helped out with national and regional solo events. We have helped out with the Formula SAE program, and Raleigh has served on the SCCA Foundation Board for a couple of terms.
One of the things that I'll always remember, though, too, is the time that we spent working on the regional development for SCCA. It all started, actually it started the Monday after Thanksgiving in 2012. That afternoon, I sat down with my employees and I told them that I was going to be retiring at the end of the year. Well, the next day, I was on the phone with Howard Duncan just by chance and mentioned to Howard after our conversation, "Oh, by the way, I'm retiring at the end of the year." And he said, "Well, fantastic, congratulations." Well, a couple hours later, he called me back and said, "Hey, how would you and Velma like to do a project for SCCA?" Well, we had no idea what we were getting in for, but we said, sure, let's do it. Well, over the next 7 years, Velma and I attended every divisional meeting in the spring of the year. We went around and tried to share ideas with regions. We would find something in one part of the country and try to share it with somebody in another part of the country. We helped regions try to get new sites, and we also tried to help them with having ideas and getting ideas for new members. One of the things that we came up with were sites. When we were talking about sites and site development, was there were 3 things that were going to be the keys to that: sites, sound, and safety. Those are the 3 things that were going to drive solo programs, we think, for the rest of SCCA's history. In turn, we came up with an idea to help get new members called CAM. And CAM was for solo. It's the Classic American Muscle Car class. Today, that class now makes up huge numbers for both regional and national events, and it's been very successful. One of the things that we really appreciate too is we have just met some of the greatest people through that program, and so the CAM people are just very, very close to us.
Over the years, I've been very involved with SCCA in a couple of different capacities. When we lived in Milwaukee, I was the divisional administrator for timing and scoring. I was also the points keeper for the Sendiv Road Racing Series. Currently, Raleigh and I are the points keepers for the Great Lakes Solo Series,
Yep.
and that is now entering its 40th year. It's had a number of different names over the year, but still the same good series. I have been an RE 2 different times. I have served on the SCCA Hall of Fame committees, and I'm currently the secretary for the SCCA Foundation. However, one of my most proud moments has been the development of the Women on Track program. This has been a great way to get women involved with SCCA, and it's a way to get women involved that they don't necessarily need to be drivers.
You know, it's interesting. I was with a friend recently, and I was looking at his t-shirt, and he had a t-shirt on that didn't have a logo on it. And I thought to myself, I don't own a t-shirt that doesn't have a logo on it.
We can change that, you know that.
I know that.
I know that.
Most of them, though, say SCCA something on them. And I thought about it. I said, SCCA has become so much a part of our lives. And we really think SCCA over the years has given us so much more than we could ever give it and ever will give it. So it's just been a great opportunity for us. We really, really appreciate it. And I think of this opportunity for us going into the Hall of Fame, it is just we are thrilled, and it is such an honor. I just want to say thank you very, very much. Thank you so much to the people that have said we should be in the hall. Thank you.
We've been very privileged to meet many people over the years and know many people throughout this country. There's probably not a state in this country that we couldn't go to that we wouldn't know somebody that lives there. So in the future, if you get a call from 317 area code, please answer. It might be us looking for a place to stay that night. We want to thank our SCCA family for its encouragement, its friendship, and its love. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Miles and Sam Collier may not have been present at the founding of the Sports Car Club of America, but it's highly unlikely the club would have survived for more than 80 years without them. Unlike the club founders, who were more interested in sports cars as street cars, the Collier brothers were interested almost exclusively in racing. They built their own racetrack on their upstate New York property, and they founded the original Automobile Racing Club of America, or ARCA, in 1933, predating the SCCA by 11 years. ARCA dissolved at the beginning of World War II, and the SCCA founders contacted the Collier brothers when it was time for the new club to get involved in racing. The brothers used their existing network for insurance, classing, and regulations to send the SCCA on a racing pathway. Further making their mark on SCCA history, the Collier brothers were among the first to bring MGs to the United States, and their MG sales company in New York was the first official importer of the brand. In 1950, the brothers traveled and participated in the 24 Hours of Le Mans to promote the SCCA and road racing in America. Sam also worked with 2016 Hall of Fame inductee Alec Ullman to establish the inaugural Sebring Endurance Race, which, of course, continues to this very day. They also worked with friend and fellow SCCA Hall of Famer Cameron Argetsinger to establish the Watkins Glen Road Races, and in the 1949 race, Miles had the drive of his life. Starting 12th, he drove around Briggs Cunningham on the final lap to take the race win. But triumph became tragedy, and in the 1950 race, Miles was killed in an accident on the street course. Though Sam survived racing, he passed away just 4 years later of polio at the age of 40. Despite leaving this earth far too soon, the Collier brothers made an indelible mark on motorsports and the SCCA that remains to this day. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Miles and Sam Collier to the SCCA Hall of Fame.
Prior to recording this, I was reading a single-spaced, 5-page memo from my father, Sam Collier, to Alec Ullman. The question he poses is, what type of club do the members of the SCCA want? It's dated June 1, 1949. So if one talks about being present at the creation, this surely was it. After Dad died at Watkins Glen in 1950, my Uncle Miles stepped up and for 4 years until his passing in 1954, served as a surrogate to me and a very loved friend. And the SCCA was very much a part of those 2 short years. Being bedded down in his study in their Palm Beach home during school breaks, I recall him on the phone calling what are now memorable SCCA names about the formation and management of the club. Alec Ullman, of course, but also I recall Fred Wacker, Charles Moran, George Rand, and of course, Briggs Cunningham, to name but a few. Many of these stalwarts of early European-style sports car racing, particularly Briggs, became very close friends of ours for the rest of their lives. After 1950, Uncle Miles told the world that he had given up racing. In fact, he had, hidden behind a false wall in his garage, a little Bandini race car, which I understand he raced a few times under an assumed name, as he and Dad had done in the 1930s. Notwithstanding Dad's and Uncle Miles' premature passing, the SCCA spirit lives on in our family. From 1969 to the mid-1970s, my cousin Miles ran an EP Porsche Speedster in regional and national events. Today, our son Sam does likewise in a Formula Continental. So, on behalf of the entire Sam and Miles Collier families, we acknowledge and thank the SCCA for honoring our elders. They would be proud indeed of what the organization has become and grateful for its superb stewardship over these many years. Miles and I thank you for this honor.
By all measure, Bob Dowie was an impressive SCCA member with a superb record of service to the club. Bob was a 36-year member of the SCCA beginning in June 1987 until his unfortunate passing in June of 2023. For 10 of those years, Bob was a respected voice of the club racing board, and for 5 years following that, was an even more respected voice on the SCCA Board of Directors. A skilled mechanic, driver, and leader, Bob's real passion was sharing his knowledge with others. He mentored young mechanics and wrote for Import Car magazine. Not surprisingly, Bob's love of the SCCA began well before he became a member. He first attended races as a fan in the 1970s and opened his own repair shop in 1980. When he decided to take his skills to the track, there was only one option. He did that successfully to absolutely no one's surprise, competing in GT5 and, following the class merger, GT Light. Bob's positive attitude toward the sport shined bright during his time on the club racing board. Bob often said, quote, "Serving on the CRB puts you in the position to make positive changes to the program," unquote. He believed that and tried to make a positive change to the SCCA in every role he assumed. A racer, a mechanic, a leader, and a friend. Please welcome Bob Dowie to the SCCA Hall of Fame.
In memory of Bob Dowie and on behalf of Bob's wife Leslie, Bob's family and friends, we would like to express our sincere thanks to the SCCA for acknowledging Bob's contribution and impact on the organization by inducting Bob into the SCCA Hall of Fame. Bob's passions in life were cars and racing. From a very young age, Bob developed a love of almost anything with an engine. His love of cars and racing brought him down a few paths leading to what we feel he would say was a great life. Along with Leslie, Bob fulfilled his dream of opening his own car repair business, a business that is still going strong today after over 40 years. The same can be said about Bob's life at the racetrack, which was his favorite place to be. Yes, he wanted to build a fast race car and win races, But at the track, just like in the rest of his life, Bob offered friendship first to anyone who was lucky enough to meet him. Bob was an incredibly kind and generous person. He would be the first to offer his assistance to anyone who needed it, whether it be his hands-on incredible mechanical skills, tools, spare parts, a supportive talk, or maybe just to make you laugh. With all this being said, Bob, having been a 36-year member of the SCCA, seems like another natural course for him to have taken. Bob's vast mechanical knowledge and skills, his love of cars and racing, were just some of his attributes that Bob was so happy to share with the SCCA. He spent all of those years with the SCCA as a member, but also as a contributor, being able to share his knowledge and ideas, whether through writing articles or serving on a board. He was proud to be a part of the SCCA, watch it evolve into the organization it has become, and by extension, of course, see how it impacted his beloved sport of racing. Through all those years and all of those paths, Bob developed lifelong relationships with his employees, customers, business associates, and fellow SCCA members. Many of those relationships he cherished for the rest of his lifetime. If Bob were here today, he would very humbly say that he was just lucky that he was able to spend his life doing what he loved, being around cars, spending time at the racetrack, and being surrounded by his friends and family. He would have been absolutely thrilled, honored, and grateful for this recognition. So again, on behalf of Leslie and Bob's family and friends, we again thank the SCCA and its members for bestowing this incredible honor on Bob. Thank you.
Hi, we are Bob's crew at Village Auto Works, Bob's second home, where he spent countless hours prepping for race weekends and welcoming fellow SCCA members to do the same, exemplifying his unwavering commitment to the sport and community. Bob was like a father to us, and he took us under his wings and taught us everything we know. His passion and hard work inspired us all, and many others. We know he truly would be humbled by this recognition. Thank you for celebrating his legacy and the impact he made within the SCCA. Thank you.
Alex Keller was an SCCA racer, but his Hall of Fame-worthy contributions to the club went well beyond the flags. Alex was a principal in building Continental Divide Raceway in 1959, hosting amateur and professional SCCA events. With an infrastructure in place for Colorado racers, he turned his attention to changing motorsports across the country. He was elected to what was then called the SCCA Board of Governors in 1966, became vice chair in 1967, and then served as the chairman for a 6-year stretch from 1969 to 1975. During his time on the Board of Governors, Keller led the evolution from a club of regions, each with their own membership requirements and standards, to a national organization with uniform practices and regional bylaws. While chairman, Alex established the SCCA Professional Racing Management Structure, which allowed the executive director to directly sanction events with tracks and promoters. But he didn't forget the amateur roots, including the establishment of the showroom stock classes. He pushed for national stewarding standards, establishing the National Court of Appeals, and using his position as a respected steward at both the pro and club level to become the first chairman. He pushed for and helped establish a collection of safety regulations, including regulations and requirements for roll bars, seat belts, helmets, fire suits, and many other items that are now commonplace today. During his life, he was awarded the 1974 Woolf Barnato Award and is a member of the Colorado Motorsports Hall of Fame. And now, please join me in welcoming Alex Keller to the SCCA Hall of Fame.
To the Sports Car Club of America, thank you so much for this wonderful honor for Alex Keller. My son and I are just thrilled at this award that he is being inducted for. His career in the Sports Car Club was very important to him, and I remember at the age of 12 going with him to CDR at a time when he was stewarding a race. It was very exciting, being right there in the pit with all the cars coming and being serviced and flying out of the pit on their way to the race. And his grandson is a mechanic in his own right. He loves performance parts for his car. So he thinks very fondly of his grandfather, and we're going to be going through all of his scrapbooks together, reminiscing about those photos, especially the ones from the 40s and 50s when he was racing with my uncle at Stapleton, long before any of this was a thing. So it's a big part of our family history, and I just want you all to know how much we appreciate this honor. Thank you again. It means everything.
Though the general public may have learned about Ken Miles in a recent Hollywood movie, he was well known in SCCA circles before he was even officially a member. Ken was a well-known fabricator and road racer in Southern California in the 1950s before the formation of Cal Club Region. A great driver and arguably an even better car builder, Ken was a character that made him a folk hero to the new generation and rubbed the establishment the wrong way. He became one of the main attractions in Southern California road racing, and with his following, he became a cult hero and therefore a great influencer in the sport, which helped make the SCCA Cal Club region the powerhouse of SCCA racing it is today. A three-time Cal Club president, Ken was inclusive at a time when the SCCA preferred to remain exclusive. That difference in opinion kept the California Sports Car Club on the outside for many years, but ultimately influenced the modern SCCA with its refreshing view on bringing others to the sport. Ken used his influence to do exactly that, and also to let the West Coast know that the SCCA was the premier place for racing in the United States. As a driver, he was successful around the world. He set speed records at Bonneville, raced in Nassau during speed weeks, and built and raced his own cars as well as Porsches, MGs, and other specials. His career hit its peak, though, when he joined with his friend and SCCA Hall of Famer Carroll Shelby's Ford GT40 program. From Daytona to Sebring to Le Mans, Miles' recognition spread beyond Southern California to the world. Of course, those later successes, as well as his unfortunate passing in a testing incident, were immortalized in the movie Ford vs. Ferrari. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a long overdue honor welcoming Ken Miles to the SCCA Hall of Fame.
First and foremost, I'd like to thank you for inducting my father into the SCCA Hall of Fame. It is truly an honor. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. So my father was a pretty intense man. Everything he did was with full concentration and effort. He held a view, which he passed on to me, was that anything worth doing is worth doing properly. And that has stuck with me well. And his mind was always going. He never slowed down. Even when he was home reading a book in the evening, it would be something expanding his mind, such as psychology or gardening or learning about wine. It was just fascinated by everything in the world, it seemed like. But he used to use some of this also, like in psychology. I remember standing next to him on a starting grid at an early race, and he would stand in front of the competitor next to him and just stare at the guy until the guy turned his head and was like, okay. And he would do that to the next guy in line, trying to pre-intimidate these guys before even starting the race. So I think it worked to some degree. But as a youth, my father was also a bit on the wild side. He was not a good student, and he dropped out of school early, but he went into the trades and just learned hands-on instead of trying to do it through books. He just wasn't good that way. I followed suit in that. But he started modifying cars and making changes and rebuilding and selling parts and stuff, even before he had a driver's license. And eventually he built a couple of his own specials that he used for trials work or hill climbs. And he got a little bit of notoriety out of that, but, not famous. One of them was he took a Ranger, I think it was, and stuck a flathead Ford in it and used that for hill climbs. So, but after the war, the English economy was not very good, and he was really struggling to support my mom. And eventually he found a job in America for the MG distributor, Golf Industries it was called. And we moved to America and started working for MG, and then moved us over. Well, then he started racing, started off with a stock MGTD, and then built a couple of his own specials, which he called R1 and R2, which were pretty successful. I think R1 won his first race, and then the next 13 races right in a row. So it was pretty good. But he moved on through the MG phase after being called Mr. MG for quite a while, and started driving Porsches for von Neumann and Otto Zepper, and had some good success there. But things changed, and eventually he went to work for Shelby, and he started as a competition manager, but also became a team driver and a development driver. And of course, you know how the Shelby Cobra program went pretty well. So eventually things escalated when Ford got more involved and the GT40 program came along. And of course, my father's capacity in the whole program increased as well. And he learned more and developed more and became even stronger in his mental capacity. And it's interesting because he wasn't afraid to learn from other people. You know, he didn't know it all. For example, at Le Mans in '65, he noticed that going through the S's, he had to lift just slightly. But he wondered about other people, so he went and watched some of the other guys go through the S's, and Foyt didn't lift. And so he okay. And even him, the next time he went out, he tried not lifting through the S's, and he made it. And from then on, it was okay. He gained a tenth of a second there. So he would learn from other people. He was not, he didn't have a big ego or anything. It was all about performance. So he loved developing the cars, and I think really that was the zenith of his career, was working for Ford and Shelby, and just doing all that development work. He just would drive and drive and drive and drive and drive and drive and drive, and he just knew everything intimately. So anyway, it all ended in a bit of a catastrophe. But I'm sorry I never got to know the man as an adult, as an adult to an adult, because we were just changing from father-son to friends when he was killed. And so that's kind of left a void in my life after that. So I've always enjoyed talking to people that worked with him and learning stories about him, learning more about the man. And it's been a great adventure for me. And so many great things have happened to me, especially since the movie. Going to Le Mans a couple of times myself and driving in Cobra Coupe and GT40 around the track. Nice, you know, really nice of people that do that kind of stuff for me. I've been to a million clubs and events and stuff. It's just been really good. Anyway, all that said, thank you again so much for inducting my father into the Hall of Fame. It's just been a miracle. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
The Member of Excellence Award selected by the SCCA Board of Directors is presented to the volunteer who shows the greatest commitment to SCCA motorsports activities. The recipient can be involved in any SCCA program as a driver, participant, or volunteer, and should personify the SCCA as one who gives of his or her time and effort to organize, work a specialty, or volunteer to support SCCA motorsport programs. To be selected, the member must have rendered long-term service working SCCA events or activities for a minimum of 5 years, and the recipient cannot be a paid SCCA staff member, current Board of Directors member, or a member who is a paid consultant to the SCCA. This year's winner joined the SCCA in the late 90s, calls the South Jersey region home and has served the SCCA across multiple disciplines and roles during their time with the club. Here's just a few of their many contributions. First, you should note that the SCCA is the only organization for all of this individual's volunteer work. They have supported both SCCA road racing and SCCA solo programs. They've also supported FR and F4 events, which run under an FIA and SCCA Pro sanction. And one last hint, I think this individual just celebrated 10 consecutive years supporting the SCCA National Championship runoffs as part of the infamous Men in Black Tech Team. This year's award winner joins a distinguished cast of leaders like Earl Hurlbut, Lee Hill, George Laws, Rich Beretta, Lori Vitigliano, Ron and Monica Shaw, Sidney Davis-Yeagle, Paula Hawthorne, and other SCCA stalwarts as this year's Member of Excellence recipient. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to this year's SCCA Member of Excellence Award winner, Mr. Matt Wakovic from the South Jersey region. Congratulations, Matt.
Hi, I'm Matt Wakoviak, and I'm from the South Jersey region SCCA. The other day, I got a surprising phone call from Mike Cobb, president of SCCA, informing me that I was selected as the 2024 Member of Excellence Award winner. To say I was shocked and honored, humbled, would be an understatement, which brought to mind, wow, how did I get here? I got here because I have a great support, primarily from my family, which includes my wife, Diane, also known as Mrs. MIB, my sons, Matthew and Anthony, who sometimes think I'm crazy with some of the things that I do. They've supported me. And recently, I'm also supported by my grandchildren, and that's Sarah and Matthew. By the way, they are the two youngest members of our tech team. They're 14 and 17 years old, and they've been coming along, and I'm quite proud of that with all the other youngsters that we're introducing to motorsports. But along the way, I can't forget how I got started, and that comes from my mentors, and I have to mention them. That is Bill Etherington, who really got me started, and Carl Yoakum, and they've both been awesome helpers to me along the way. And then there's the cast of characters, and I say that respectfully. They're the people that work with me and that I have the honor of working with. Most notably, I'd like to mention that Greg Kozahowski, who has worked tireless hours to help me develop some of the equipment that we've used locally and at runoffs. Joe Hines, who is my electronics expert, who most recently is helpful in developing the undercar camera system we used at the runoffs. And when we were working runoffs, the cast of characters there, which include the two Scotts and Brandy, which have provided the atmosphere that makes us look good and do our job well. What would make me even more happy than I am right now accepting this award would be that if all those folks that I mentioned could be standing here with me now to help me accept this award, because they've all earned a piece of it and they deserve it. And I'd like a big thank you to them and to SCCA for this honor that they have bestowed on me. Thank you.
My fellow SCCA members, it is an extraordinary privilege to be here tonight to introduce the recipient of the 2024 Woolf Barnato Award, the highest honor bestowed by the SCCA. This award recognizes unparalleled contributions to our club and the world of motorsport. Nicholas Craw is not just a name etched in the history of our club, he is a beacon of integrity, intellect, and vision. In May 1983, during the same SCCA Board of Directors meetings that launched Nick's role as SCCA President and CEO, he entrusted our company, today known as Racer Media and Marketing, with the responsibility of publishing Sports Car magazine for our club. That decision marked the beginning of a 4-decade-long relationship that was one of the great privileges of my life. But beyond business, Nick became my life mentor, a role model, and a cherished friend. Nick's leadership of the SCCA wasn't just effective, it was transformational, During his 17-year record tenure as president and CEO, he pioneered initiatives that redefined member benefits, access to motorsports participation, and financial stability in the sport. The catastrophic insurance program he introduced became an industry standard. His Spec Racer initiative revolutionized amateur racing and ushered in a new age of accessible spec categories across the sport. On the track, Nick was equally inspiring. I had the privilege of watching him race professionally in the SCCA and in IMSA in the 1970s, where his skill and determination earned him championships and respect from racers he shared the grid with. Nick has worn many hats in his extraordinary career, from racer to director of the Peace Corps, to president and CEO of the SCCA, to director of U.S. Sailing, to president of ACUS, and concurrently, the president of the FIA Senate, where he became the first and only American to hold that esteemed position. Yet through all these roles, one thing has remained constant: Nick's unwavering commitment to excellence, integrity, and the betterment of every organization he served. A year ago, I was the recipient of this prestigious award, and I can tell you it was one of the greatest honors of my life. But tonight, introducing my hero, my mentor, and my dear friend Nick Craw as the 2024 Woolf Barnato Award winner surpasses even that. Nick, you didn't just lead the SCCA, you saved it. You didn't just inspire racers, you empowered them. And you didn't just advise me, you inspired me. As you changed my life for the better in every way possible by your faultless example. It is with immense pride, deep gratitude, and a heartfelt admiration that I ask you all to join me in congratulating Nicholas Craw, the 2024 SCCA Woolf Barnato Award recipient.
Thank you, Paul, for those very kind remarks. The histories of the prior recipients are truly impressive, and so this surprises and makes me very humble. The overriding emotion that I felt upon the call from Mike Cobb was gratitude, not so much for the honor, but for the multitude of people who made it possible. My association with SCCA began with a chance encounter at a dinner. It so happened that the host was an SCCA member and a racer who ended up introducing me to a long-held dream of racing. Without that meeting and his mentorship, my entire career spanning 50 years, both on and off the track and all over the world, could never have happened. I will be eternally grateful to that first SCCA member, more than I could ever repay. And now there are so many more to thank. From my earliest days in racing, I couldn't help but notice how many people it took to put on these events, all volunteers, often working in miserable conditions. When I became CEO 6 years after retiring from driving, my gratitude for their service stimulated the groundbreaking $500,000 catastrophic insurance program. Huge thanks to the thousands of workers who kept us safe over so many events. My association with SCCA did not end with my employment. In my FIA role, a number of grants were steered to SCCA, one of the more notable being the seed money to start the very successful Track Night in America program. Paul spoke of leadership in his introduction. My particular model involves surrounding myself with people smarter than I am and allowing them to innovate and take risks. If we ever achieved successful new programs, they were the drivers, and I was generally just guiding and keeping an eye on them, praising them for success, but never punishing them for trying. I was blessed with a remarkable staff who grew the club in stature and financial viability over my 17-year tenure. All credit to them, SCCA members all. There is one important group of SCCA members who usually only hear the complaints, but who also deserve our thanks: the SCCA Board of Directors. They were invaluable as a sounding board, but also because they gave me unparalleled freedom to perform as their first ever CEO. The board signed off on the creation of SCCA Enterprises to support some 800 spec racers, spinning off pro racing as a for-profit entity, and funding the SCCA Foundation, launching the World Challenge Series, just to name a few. However, no partner was more involved in propagating our message and SCCA's brand than Paul Fanner and his dedicated team at Sports Car. For 17 years, they were our primary voice to the membership and the motorsports world at large, reliably creating a quality product every single month without fail. Heartfelt thanks to them all, SCCA members all. Long after I left SCCA and was hired to head up ACUS, 2 guesses where my first phone calls went for staffing up the new Denver office. 2 former 20-year SCCA employees. Much of the success that ACUS and FIA enjoyed over the next 15 years is attributable to their smooth running of the office while I was often out of the country, accumulating some 2 million frequent flyer miles. To bring this family story full circle, SCCA brought me together with the love of my life at the runoffs at Road Atlanta. Many thanks for that wonderful gift. My message to all the members at SCCA: always remember to acknowledge those who helped you along the way. It doesn't cost anything and is infinitely precious. Thank you again, and good night.
On behalf of the SCCA Board of Directors, SCCA staff, and SCCA membership at large, I want to congratulate each of our award winners tonight. Our Hall of Fame inductees, Ken Miles, Sam and Miles Collier, Alex Keller, Raleigh and Velma Breen, and Bob Dowie. Nick Craw, this year's Woolf Barnato Award winner, and I also want to congratulate our Member of Excellence winner, Matt Wakovic. All have contributed greatly to this club and all helped lay the foundation that we stand on today. We are blessed to have them as vital members of this family that we call the Sports Car Club of America. Early in the annual meeting and general session today, we talked about our inviting enthusiasts to partake of the SCCA buffet in the manner of their choosing, and how each of us as members play a role in creating an SCCA experience, one that invites and fosters a high level of engagement. In that spirit, I want to thank tonight's award winners. Thank you for your many, many contributions and for inviting many along the way to join and support the SCCA. We're a much better club because of folks like yourself, and we're beyond grateful for your dedication. In closing, and to each of you watching tonight, I also want to thank you for your continued commitment to the SCCA. Moving into 2025, let each of us commit to inviting just one newbie to the club, and then let's collectively provide them with the best SCCA experience possible. Team, I look forward to seeing you at the National Convention sessions which follow, the division meetings that also follow the National Convention, and working with you at an SCCA event in the very near future. Good night and God bless from SCCA Studio.